Some people enter adulthood already exhausted. They carry something invisible, a quiet weight most people never notice until it is far too late. Something shaped them early, and the world never quite understood what it asked of them. Most people assume growing up fast is about extreme circumstances: poverty, absent parents, crisis. That picture is real, but it covers only a fraction of the truth. The fuller reality is more ordinary than most expect. Millions grow up fast not from dramatic trauma, but from small, repeated moments that quietly demanded more than childhood should ask. They learned to read the emotional temperature of a room before they could read words. They understood which needs were safer kept hidden than spoken aloud. This is not about victimhood. It is about a particular kind of psychology, one built not in therapy offices, but in kitchens, hallways, and the quiet corners of ordinary homes. People who grew up too fast often look completely fine from the outside. They are competent, dependable, composed. They rarely complain. They simply get things done. But inside, there is a pattern of thought and behavior that took root before they had the vocabulary to describe it, formed under pressure, in the absence of adequate guidance. What psychology continues to explore is how this accelerated development creates both remarkable strengths and deeply persistent challenges, and how neither can be understood without the other. The common belief is that struggle simply makes you stronger, that hardship is a kind of training, and those who endure it come out toughened and ready for anything. But resilience is not a simple quality. It is a complicated architecture of learned responses, some of which serve beautifully, and some that quietly undermine the life they were built to protect. To understand the psychology of people who grew up too fast, you must return to ordinary moments, unremarkable ones that were quietly building an entire inner world. Ask yourself this as you listen. Were there moments in your own childhood when you felt older than you were supposed to feel? When something around you required your maturity without asking? You are 7 years old. Dinner was supposed to be ready, but the adult who should have made it is not home. So you open the refrigerator and figure it out yourself. Nobody taught you how to do this. There was no instruction, no praise waiting afterward. You simply noticed a problem and moved toward solving it because waiting felt more unbearable than acting. You are 9, and a younger sibling is crying in the next room. The adults are busy, distant, or absent. You walk in, sit down, and try to make it better. There is no applause for this. No one arrives to tell you it was remarkable. It folds into the rhythm of your days before you realize it is shaping who you are. You are 11, sitting nearby while 2 adults argue. You have learned to go very still in these moments, reading voices for escalation, monitoring the energy in the room automatically. This is not something any child should need to learn. But you learned it anyway, and you learned it thoroughly, because the cost of not learning it felt too high to risk. You are 12 and money is tight. You understand this not because anyone explained it, but because you absorbed it. From the pauses before purchases, from conversations that stopped when you entered. You start making yourself smaller. You ask for less. You find ways to solve your own small problems without adding to the weight already pressing on the people around you. It feels like responsibility at the time. It will take years before you also recognize it as loneliness. The loneliness of learning to disappear before anyone asked you to. You are 14, instinctively managing a conflict between 2 friends, softening tension, translating feelings, mediating without anyone assigning you that role. You do this because you grew up doing it. You are 16, making decisions most people don't face until their mid-20s, about money, family, responsibility. You make them carefully and mostly alone, because that is the only way. Somewhere in those years, something locks into place inside you. A self-reliance so deep it feels like both a foundation and a wall, and you cannot tell the difference. You carry those years forward into everything. They appear in how you work, how you love, how you respond under pressure, and how you feel when the world asks nothing of you. You carry the invisible knowledge of what it took to get here. Knowledge no one granted you, knowledge that simply grew in the space where ease and childhood guidance should have been. The behaviors that emerge from early responsibility follow a recognizable pattern. They are intelligent adaptations, survival strategies that once worked precisely and now persist past their original need. Hyperindependence is among the most visible. People who grew up too fast find it genuinely difficult to ask for help. Not from pride, but because needing others once felt genuinely unsafe. They become extraordinarily capable as a result. But they also carry a quiet exhaustion from handling everything alone, and struggle to receive support even when it is freely offered. Emotional reading becomes second nature. They can walk into a room and sense tension before a single word is spoken. This hypervigilance was protection in childhood. In adulthood, it can become anxiety. They are often the most reliable people in any room. When a crisis arrives, they move toward it. Chaos does not paralyze them. They were trained in it early. But that same quality can make rest feel foreign. Stillness can feel like threat. When nothing is wrong, something in them continues scanning for what might go wrong next. Their relationships carry particular complexity. They tend toward people who need care, and they give it generously. But they often struggle to voice their own needs with equal confidence. There is a deep sensitivity to injustice in these individuals. Having known vulnerability early, they feel intensely for others who carry it. Their empathy is rooted in lived experience, not abstraction. Decision-making is often marked by unusual deliberateness. They learned early that mistakes are not always cushioned by safety nets. Carefulness became a way of life, a permanent posture toward consequence. They tend toward profound self-awareness, far beyond what peers developed at the same age. Understanding themselves, their emotions, triggers, and patterns was part of surviving the environments that raised them. They also carry a quietly complicated relationship with success. Achieving things feels necessary, not celebrated. Rest after accomplishment can feel unearned. The idea of slowing down can trigger an almost physical discomfort. Their humor tends toward the dry and observational. They learned early to notice small absurdities of human behavior, a skill born from watching the world carefully when it mattered. Many of them discovered books, music, or internal worlds early, not as hobbies but as sanctuaries. The inner life became a place of safety when the outer one was unpredictable. They often feel a peculiar dissonance around their peers. Not superiority, but a quiet awareness of having inhabited a different reality. A sense that they were, somehow, always watching from a slight distance. What would you say, reflecting honestly on your own life? Are the qualities you rely on most today the ones forged under pressure? And does that origin make them gifts, or something more complicated? Psychologists use the concept of parentification to describe when a child takes on adult emotional or practical responsibilities. Research shows it builds certain capacities while compressing others in lasting ways. The prefrontal cortex, governing planning, emotional regulation, and impulse control, is still developing well into a person's mid-20s. When a child must function as an adult before this completes, the brain adapts at real cost. Chronic activation of the stress response during childhood alters how the nervous system calibrates threat. What was once useful alertness becomes, in many cases, persistent anxiety, a body trained to stay ready. Attachment theory offers another lens. Children who grow up fast often develop anxious or avoidant patterns, ways of relating shaped by the unpredictability of the people they once depended on most. Delayed gratification tends to be a genuine strength in this population. Having learned to endure discomfort without relief, they are often more capable of pursuing long-term goals without needing immediate reward. Their emotional regulation, while practiced on the surface, can sometimes be over-controlled. They learn to contain feelings so thoroughly that accessing them freely, even in safe contexts, feels difficult. Neuroplasticity provides genuine hope. The brain retains the ability to build new pathways throughout life. The patterns formed in childhood are influential, but they are not permanent verdicts. Awareness begins to change them. Research in post-traumatic growth shows that many people who grew up under difficult conditions develop exceptional purpose and psychological depth. Not despite their experiences, but through careful integration of them. The key distinction is whether some secure relationship existed alongside the adversity, even one trusted adult present in any way. That single presence shifts outcomes significantly toward growth. Understanding this science is not about cataloging damage. It is about recognizing that the human mind, even under sustained pressure, finds remarkable and sometimes unexpected ways to build itself from what is available. You are 6 years old, and there is nothing to do. No screen, no schedule, no adult organizing your afternoon. You wander and eventually begin making something. Boredom teaches you to author your own experience. Nobody planned that lesson. There was no curriculum behind it. The lesson arrived simply because nothing arrived. And in that emptiness, something in you learned to move rather than wait. You are 8, and you have made a serious mistake. Something broke, and there is no one to absorb the consequence for you. You sit with what you did and feel its full weight. Then you figure out how to make it right. Accountability becomes character before it becomes a concept you can name, woven into how you operate long before anyone taught it. You are 9, waiting for something that matters, an outcome entirely outside your control. You learn to sit in uncertainty without dissolving. Patience grows inside you because it has no alternative. It does not arrive as a virtue. It arrives as quiet necessity, built from long experience of waiting for things that were slow in coming, or that never came at all. You are 10, and a problem appears with no adult available to solve it. You think. You try something. It fails. You try something else. Failure begins to feel like information rather than verdict. This iterative relationship with failure builds one of the most durable capacities a person can possess. The understanding that wrong attempts are part of the process, not proof of something permanent. You are 11, and someone you trust says something that cuts without meaning to. You carry it home and process it alone. Emotional resilience grows because the environment requires it, not because anyone cultivated it. You learn that feelings can be held, examined, and metabolized without external assistance. That internal process becomes one of your defining capacities, though it also sometimes makes intimacy feel unnecessarily complicated. You are 12 and you take a real risk, a choice that could go wrong. It goes right. Something registers. Doing nothing guarantees nothing, and measured courage is worth practicing. Risk tolerance does not come from recklessness. It grows from small decisions made independently, each one teaching your nervous system that uncertainty is survivable and sometimes rewarding. You are 13, and a friendship fractures. There is no adult stepping in to mediate. You must decide, repair it or release it. You learn that relationships require active navigation. You also learn that your own emotional needs belong in the equation of friendship. That self-erasure in the name of peace is not loyalty, but a pattern that compounds quietly. You are 14, watching something at home you cannot fix. You lack the tools and authority. You learn the difficult difference between problems that are yours and those that belong to the world. That distinction will serve you profoundly as an adult. But it comes with grief, the grief of a child who had to learn it far too early and entirely alone. You are 15, managing school, home, and perhaps someone else's well-being simultaneously. You develop an organizational system most people don't discover until their 30s. Time becomes something you are always conscious of. You are 16, and someone your age complains about something that seems, from where you stand, remarkably small. You say nothing. You notice the gap between your world and theirs. Social awareness deepens without fanfare. You are 17, and for the first time in a long while, an afternoon asks nothing of you. You do not know what to do with the stillness. Rest requires relearning. You have been oriented toward function for so long that being without a task feels like something is wrong. That wiring takes time and intention to soften, but it can be. You are 18, stepping into formal adulthood. The world treats this as a crossing. For you, the crossing happened years ago. You arrive with quiet, practiced knowledge of what independence demands. You are 22, and someone asks how you became so capable and composed. The honest answer is too long. So you simply say, "Life taught me early." That is enough. You are 25, and for the first time you ask what you actually want. Not what is needed, not what is responsible, but what you genuinely and simply want. That difficulty tells you something precise. You have spent so many years responding to the world's needs that discovering your own desires requires patient, careful excavation. You are 30, and you see the architecture clearly. You understand how the child you were built the adult you are. You begin choosing intentionally who you want to become. You realize the growing up you did early was real and remarkable. But it was not the whole story. There is another kind of growing available, slower, freer, entirely yours. This realization does not arrive all at once. It comes in quiet moments, when someone offers care and you actually receive it, when you ask for help and things hold. And in those moments, something held very tightly for a very long time begins slowly and on its own terms to soften. That softening is not weakness. It is the second chapter. The micro moments described here are not extraordinary. They are the ordinary fabric of a childhood that asked too much, and from which something quietly extraordinary was built. Each small scene of early independence, each moment of navigating alone, each experience of sitting with discomfort, all left deposits in a foundation capable of remarkable things. Today's world raises children inside a fundamentally different psychological environment than any previous generation has known. The contrast with the developmental path described here is significant and worth examining. Smartphones have made continuous stimulation the default state of childhood. When boredom arrives, the condition that once forced creativity, it is dissolved before it can do its work. Instant gratification has become the ambient setting of modern life. Content, connection, and reward are available within seconds. The psychological muscle of delayed gratification receives far less exercise than it once did. Parental involvement has intensified in many demographics. Helicopter parenting, well-intentioned and loving, sometimes removes the productive friction through which problem-solving and emotional independence develop naturally in children. Social media places a curated version of other people's lives in continuous view, functioning as a comparison engine for developing minds. The effects include anxiety, identity confusion, and persistent modern inadequacy. The skills that once grew from unstructured time, boredom, real conflict, and unsupervised problem-solving must now be deliberately cultivated, because the conditions that produce them are disappearing. This is not a nostalgic argument for hardship. It is a genuine question. What specific capacities are built through friction, and what happens when a generation encounters very little of it? People who grew up too fast did not choose this path. But their story is instructive. The mind builds its deepest capacities not in comfort alone, but between easy and required. The generation growing up now deserves genuine support and productive challenge. Finding ways to provide the second without removing the first may be one of the most important questions of our time. Consider this. What do you believe is the most important ingredient for genuine psychological resilience in a young person? Comfort, challenge, or something more nuanced than either word alone can hold? There is something quietly profound about a person who had to grow up too fast. They carry evidence, in everything they do, that the human spirit will build itself under almost any conditions. But the deepest truth is this. Those who learn to carry so much alone deserve to put some of it down. They do not need to keep earning the right to be cared for. Resilience, in its fullest form, is not only the ability to endure. It is also the capacity to receive, to allow support in, to soften the vigilance, to trust that need is not weakness. The child who had to grow up fast did something extraordinary. They deserve to spend the rest of their life growing at their own pace, toward a future they deliberately chose. If this resonated, share it with someone who might need to hear it. In the comments, tell us, what is one thing you wish someone had told you about the weight you carried alone?